Welcome back to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, good to have you here. I'm your host this week, Jim Root, joined by Kai McEwen and Matthew Cox. I am still a little nasally, but I feel infinitely better than I did last week, Kai, when I basically crawled back into bed after we finished our pod. So that is a plus for me. How are you doing on this fine Thursday?
I'm doing good, Jim. It's nice to hear that you are good. We were talking today. At least it's not below 0 degrees in Chicago anymore. We're very excited about that. It's warming up. Matthew, it's over 20. Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Yeah, weather stuff. Hey, kind of a fun night last night in college basketball for the military men. That was actually going to be just a quick opening thought, not worthy of an actual thought during this segment of the show, but VMI smacking Furman. Air Force should have beaten San Diego State. Gut-wrenching loss on a Tyus Edney type play. And then the Citadel covered. That's not as exciting, but they did cover, so that's good. So 3 for 3, I guess, for fun, interesting nuggets from the military men in college hoops. That's my observation. Let's go.
I'm so happy for VMI. They have been in the dregs for a while, and they're actually getting wins now. Good for Andrew
Good
Wilson.
coach.
Good for the Keydets. Yes, tough job. Really tough job. So congrats to him. Okay, we got a wonderful, typical weekly season, weekly season episode for you here. We're going to do a little Roots Roundup, catch up on some news and notes, talk the latest Dan Hurley press conference mania. Then we saw that, notable results from the last week, some teams, some performances, a couple call outs, three-man thoughts, a little bit of call your own, choose your own adventure as far as musings from the week that was, previews of a couple games for the weekend, and then last but very not least, reviews from you, the listener. Talk about those to wrap up the pod. We appreciate any listens or any reviews. 5 stars. Love them. Shout out to Jay Pitty, aka Joe Paskov, our buddy who composed the intro tunes. We appreciate that. Follow us on Twitter at 3MW_CBB. Same handle on Instagram, and subscribe to the pod on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, etc., wherever you get it. Also, subscribe on YouTube, where we are currently streaming live at 7 a.m. Central sharp on a Thursday morning. TBD if that day will continue. We might have a shift back to Fridays,
Ooh,
it sounds like, due to the
yeah.
schedule of Big Bad Dad Matthew over there, Matt. So if anybody's got
And
flag for you, it's
it's
going
not
to be
even
Friday
like
morning.
I should have sold that to you guys. So just full transparency, I'm the one who pitched the move to Friday. And I should have sold it as like I'm a father and it's really important that I do it, but I really just more about trying to fire off bets on massive Thursday
Nope,
slates
nope,
while we're
it's 'cause you're
talking
a
ball.
father. It's your father.
Okay.
Let's guilt
Thank you.
the
Thank you.
listeners
I
into
appreciate that.
not complaining. Yes, good, perfect. Should obviously still have it out Friday mornings early-ish to get you through your work days on Fridays, get you through to the weekend, and we'll always be back on Saturday morning on our YouTube channel
Yeah, you
talking
get us
best
back to
bets.
back. And we get more reactions from the fresh off the big Thursday slate the night before.
There you go.
Wow,
Yeah,
what a great
lots more
idea,
to
man.
break down.
Brilliant idea by Matt.
Matt, you nailed it. You're such a king. Very proud of you. Also, subscribe to the Discord, the burner, where we are hanging out daily with Trilly Donovan and friends, talking about games literally every single day. People bring up games they like, games they're curious about. We'll respond when we can, or if you directly address us, we'll respond immediately most of the time. So hop in there. It's a great, great place to talk ball. There's potential portal lists coming out from Trilly. There's the coaching carousel discussion, which we'll mention a certain Hoosier State School in the podcast today that we're going to discuss, one of Kai's thoughts. So don't worry, we will cover that as well here on the pod. But yeah, just a generally college basketball friendly place. Highly encourage you to join. It's worth the $6 a month. You get a ton out of it. So hop in. The Discord, the link will be in the description of this podcast and video on YouTube. So check it out. All right, fellas, that is it. It's time to get into Roots Roundup, our news and notes section. But Matthew, before we do, a quick shout out to CBB Analytics, a wonderful, wonderful site and a loyal sponsor of this podcast.
CBB Analytics, Jim. Yes, the holy grail of college basketball data, statistics from the 40,000-foot bird's eye view down to the nitty-gritty play-by-play details, many of which are some of the new features that Nick and the team have been rolling out. Now you can kind of dig into some of the play-by-play data slices in his team or conference-specific pages. You got transition-specific stats. You got putbacks, offensive rebounds, and half court. Talked about this, I think, last time we plugged it, being able to dissect team efficiency based on type of possession. very important. He's made some updates to their live game stats. He's trying to kind of build that into potentially something you pull up and watch and track while you're watching games. I know we're all frustrated with every live scoring app that we use. Um, so keep that on your radar as well. Talked about the new Game Explorer tool he has out, or just be able to find superlative performances contextualized for players and teams with historical context, much like what you saw with basketball index. Um, and then also some splits for the official, or sorry, all splits for the official D1 versus D2 versus D3 games. You can toggle through those very easily. Make sure you take out some, season long stats you don't think are relevant, or include them if you think they are relevant. And again, we talked about how that D2, D3 in-depth access gives you, especially coaches or players looking at D2, D3 players joining their team this year or for next year. So all that good stuff is new, along with the baseline stuff that we love, the shot charts, the on-off stuff. It's all there. Again, there's really not a lot that he hasn't really, that no stone has been unturned. If you want to sign up, do so today. Use our promo code WEAVE, WEAVE. That's for $40 off a subscription. Jimbo.
Well done, Matthew. Well done. Well said. Okay, coaching news in the world. Stephen F. Austin parted ways with Kyle Keller. It's a little bit surprising here at this time in January. Keller's been solid, if unspectacular there, not quite the Brad Underwood dominance that we saw before he arrived. But man, Kai, they have been awful this year. One of the worst shooting teams in the history of the sport. They are sub 24% from three. They can't make free throws. They turn the ball over like crazy. It still feels a little harsh to part ways with him in mid-January.
I agree. Surprising, Jim. Anonymous source reached out to me and said he had lost the locker room. Basically, the team just kind of hasn't. I don't want to. I won't pontificate on that anymore. But basically, I think it was time for him to go. Is what most SFA insiders believe. New AD, I think, as well. I guess another guy just tweeted at me publicly
that knows it.
He hired a guy for a new coach for baseball. He's likely going to do it for basketball as well, from West Texas A&M, I think. So maybe that's a little down the road thing for the next head coach. But still, I think Kyle Keller did a pretty good job there. Other people have won their gym, though. So is it he's not living up to program expectations, or is this program good no matter who's in charge? It's hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah, very well could be the former. To just not feeling like they're getting what they should out of the organization outside of the top 250 in KenPom for the first time since 2002 right now. Sorry, 2005. But yeah, it's not overly encouraging. Kai, through 8 games in league play, they're shooting 19% from three.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's part of losing the locker room, but clearly they have lost confidence and guys are just tossing up bricks. The return to the Southland has not gone as planned. It was expected they'd maybe challenge McNeese. That hasn't been the case.
That's probably the big driver. They're 1-7 in the Southland, and I think almost everybody expected them to shoot back up towards the top of the standings once they got back in this league. And it's been the opposite.
Yeah, so that'll actually be a somewhat appealing mid-major spot. Again, somebody from D2 or not a coveted high major assistant, but I think you can get a pretty respected name at that place. So we'll see where the coaching search lands as the carousel spins. Okay, and the other part of coaching discussion here, Danny Hurley, the latest shenanigans on the sideline with the Huskies. He was caught on video saying either, "What are you doing to me?" or "Don't turn your back on me" to a ref, followed by, "I'm the best coach in the effing sport." Which,
nice.
Yes, you've won back-to-back national titles, sure. Matt, it just seems like a bizarre thing to say and almost kind of insane thing to say. I'll go so far as to posture. It's just he's created this whole caricature persona for himself, and in his presser afterwards, he's like, yeah, they just are always filming me, following me. They catch these moments, and it's like, dude, you do these things. It's no one forces you to do them, and he did at least say he creates this himself. But I think he's a lot less self-aware than he thinks he is.
Yeah, I think we were fooled by how self-aware he was, or how much he had changed when they were winning. But I think when things aren't going so honky-dory, some cracks are exposed. He gives credit to his assistants pretty often. Like we've heard him in person mention Murray and who's the other?
Young.
Kamani Young. Right. But this sort of like, oh, wait, no, maybe Hurley does believe that this is all his brainchild, the fact that he took you. It's like, Other people were at play here. Obviously, you're very important, Dan, but I don't like this guy. It's kind of drumming back up the true Danny Hurley that maybe we saw at Rhode Island when he was just still going bananas and
Or
about ready to burst pop a blood vessel in his head.
or early UConn before he won titles. I mean, he's always done this. Yeah,
That's true. I
every
forgot
single
the pre-good UConn Hurley era. It's just like a miss in
yeah.
my
He
timeline.
says every coach does this. Every coach gets mad at the ref once in a while, but it's 24/7 with him, and he knows this. Jim, him saying that I've created this for myself in his like stoic voice is like saying an insult and then saying with all due respect. So I said with all due respect. That means I can say
Yeah.
whatever I want, and you have to be okay with it.
Yeah, it's so easy to not do some of this stuff. You're an adult. Like this isn't a kid throwing a tantrum, but and he's like talking about the actions on the sideline. Like nobody falls down the way he did in Maui and like, oh my God, how dare like he takes it to such an extreme level and it is again easy to not do this. A million people don't do this, react the way he does at their job. So I have no sympathy, none whatsoever. So figure it out. The camera's going to be on you. Either behave or you're going to get this kind of stuff to happen every single time. So I, again, no sympathy from me. Recruiting. Four-star center Mohamed Sila committed to Georgia Tech, top 25 prospect. I have a little bit of a possible worry for Mr. Sotomayor in one of my three-man thoughts. So we can talk a little more Georgia Tech there, but that's an encouraging sign. There's still some positive momentum on the recruiting trail for the Yellow Jackets, despite no positive momentum on the court right now. It's kind of a bummer. They're under 500 overall and in the ACC. Not exactly looking up yet for the Stoudemire tenure. In injury news, Arkansas's star freshman guard Boogie Fland is out for the season. They did win their first SEC game without him, a big-time comeback at home, barely escaping Georgia, and the Mike White coached Bulldogs. Kai, I'm not going to say this is starting a renaissance for Arkansas. I'm not going to say without Flan suddenly they're better, but I do hope to see a little more Nelly Davis. I do
Yeah.
hope to see maybe a more logical, coherent pecking order on the offensive end. I still don't think Arkansas is making the tournament.
I don't either. I still don't think Georgia's that great of a team, but they definitely blew this game and should have won. But I agree, Jim. Johnny Davis or Nelly Davis or John L. Davis, I think him playing more is important. He didn't have a good game at all, but more minutes, good thing. However, I loved Boogie Flan. I didn't think he was the problem, and I don't think they won because he was out. It's still a team that I just do not think is very good. Every criticism, by the way, Calipari is getting is warranted. There's been a lot of back and forth with Big Blue Nation and Seth Greenberg and Jay Williams. No, every single piece of criticism Calipari is getting is absolutely warranted.
Yep.
What's Greenberg saying? Defending his boy?
Greenberg almost blamed Arkansas's bad start on Kentucky fans, like sending positive or negative energy. He went on some
I can see
Kentucky
that.
shows and got angry, and there's a big like
Sure.
infighting. It's Jay Williams kind of said the same thing, but you know Jay Williams, he's
Hey, we're talking about it right now.
biased.
They won. They won. You let them win by even addressing on this program. They won.
Hey, per our friends at CBB Analytics, Matthew, Arkansas 25 points better when Fland is on the court this season than when off. 20 plus 25 net rating. That's in the 97th percentile nationally. He was good and
Yeah, I don't feel like this is
impacted
any sort of
winning for
viewing
them.
theory thing. I just think he's a really good player. They're going to miss him. So,
Yep,
yeah.
agreed. Bummer to see him out. We hate injuries. In other random news and notes, Eastern Michigan games have been flagged for unusual gambling activity. They are starting to be investigated by the powers that be in that department. This is not the only school that's rumored to be under watch. We won't name other names until they're publicly being investigated. We won't speculate like that, but they are the surest one with some of the first half line movement that they've had. And Matthew, notably, they have two guys from last year's DePaul team on the roster.
Yeah.
that
Yes. Also was
you could, yeah. I don't think was ever officially announced as investigated, but they
We'd
were
heard some stuff.
horrific. Yes,
And
we
we
heard
know
some
they were
rumors
bad.
there. Yes, so it might be connecting the dots there on those two players.
And
It's funny. I saw they've been really good since the
exactly.
report was
two
released.
straight wins. Yes.
One at Bowling Green and put 94 in Ohio. It reminds me, it's like Temple last year, right? When I think the report came out, it's like Temple's like, oh wow, Temple's good. Like maybe if we play well, they'll stop the investigation. Like, well, no, now you're probably screwed if it was true. But I'm glad you're playing good basketball now. I'm glad that your fans get to see a product that maybe you're trying to win. Again, this is all speculative, but it feels I don't know. So I watched some of the first halves of a couple of those games. Like I think there was 2 or 3 lane violations. It's just like, I mean, it's just really easy to stand there while a free throw is being shot. So I don't know.
Yeah, definitely a little fishy, a little suspicious.
Hmm.
Ohio was admittedly shorthanded in that monster performance,
Yeah,
but I
they
mean
were.
they blew them out. Like Ohio clearly a better team. Eastern Michigan up 15 at halftime. Not the same first half questionable behavior that we had seen in the past. Yeah, that's again just you can kind of draw a straight line there and connect the dots. Another little bit of rule adjudication that I want to mention. The CBS Sports podcast did a little bit about this. Eye on college basketball. Shout out to Matt Norlander and Gary Parrish. Late in the Illinois Michigan State game, Kylan Boswell got an offensive rebound of his own missed free throw on the baseline and shot over the backboard. And before it even hit the rim, it was ruled out of bounds. No chance of going in or an offensive rebound. I don't get why this is illegal, Kai. It's not
Neither do I.
hurting anyone. Why? Let's legalize this. I think we can pretty unanimously say it,
I.
correct?
I've never understood why this is illegal. The ball can go past the out of bounds line and guys can still save it. So that's a to say like the out of bounds extends from the backboard up is just incorrect. So as long as you're
Yeah.
still in bounds, it's fine. Why wouldn't you be able to shoot over the backboard? It's my favorite warm up drill to do, Matt. Shoot over the backboard and make some shots. It should be allowed. I don't understand why it's not.
Yeah, the entire it should all be in play. Like all the entire basket fixation, like the hole that it's attached to, even behind it. Like as long as
The
the ball
stanchion.
is like stays in bounds somehow, and you're in bounds, I guess. I mean, that's tough to do, but I guess it makes me think more of like the suspended rims, like in Colorado, and what other gym has those
Some of the
suspended?
smaller gyms, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Yeah,
one more
where it
big
comes
one that
from the
has one
top.
too, I
Doesn't
think.
Duke have that,
If it
man?
Duke
hits
has it. Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
it hits the back of the basket, sure. But if it doesn't hit anything, I think fair game, right?
Yeah, this isn't
Yeah.
like an easier shot. You don't get more points. There's no reason to like. People aren't going to suddenly take it a ton if it's legal. Just let it go. Let it happen. As Norlander and Parrish said, the one or two times it goes in a year are going to be electric. So it's
Right.
worth it.
Shot quality has it as a low efficiency shot, so I just think we have
If
to
you're
allow
going
it.
over the top, yeah, yeah,
We have to
that
allow
makes
it.
sense. So hey, there's a little mini defense for Illinois, and we can discuss a little bit more. And we saw that, which is where we're at. We're going to transition over to we've saw that, which is some of the bigger games, moments, performances that we saw over the past week, and we'll start with that game, Michigan State taking control of the Big Ten, knocking off Illinois in East Lansing on Sunday. Boy, it felt like some shaky officiating for Mr. Yakuchonis for Illinois. A lot of phantom fouls to get him in foul trouble. He barely played, barely got to contribute. I've rewatched all the foul calls compiled, and they were late. They were soft, at least until his last one. Matt, this was bizarre to say the least. Mr. Underwood complained after the game about him not getting star calls. I hate that. I don't
Yeah,
think
I do too.
anyone should get star calls, and he's part of the problem for even complaining about it. But he should get refed like every other player, which is to say, not getting phantom foul calls. That was a bummer to see.
Yeah, it was. I think the takeaway, I think I forgot who mentioned this, but a profound tweet or message in our Discord. I came away from that game thinking Illinois is the better team. So refereeing aside, just want to kind of hijack this. We stalled into just a quick Matt thought. I think Illinois is the best team in the Big Ten. I've arrived at that conclusion. I think this game with neutral officiating, and any semblance of a normal game flow, if he's not in foul trouble, I think they win handily. And obviously, you take away the USC game, Kai. Um, Really nice basketball team, like crazy high ceiling, and I'm in. There you go. And I just feel like I have to continue to repent my sins to Illinois fans, so I'll do it again.
There you go. Well, yeah, they are controlling Michigan State. That is controlling the Big Ten now with the only undefeated record at 7-0. Michigan's got the only loss behind them. We'll mention why they lost or how they lost in a second here. Purdue 7-2, and then Illinois, Wisconsin, and Oregon flotsam at 5-3. So the chase is on to catch Sparty over the next month and a half. But they're the controlling team atop the league. Another team that's cooking lately, that would be Louisville, Matthew. Who needs depth? Who needs Case and Pryor? They've won 9 in a row, including some huge ACC wins. They dominated at SMU on Tuesday. How high can the Cardinals soar? I saw an interesting ESPN bracketology or bubble watch type thing that only had them as like a coin flip to make the tournament. That's insane to me. It includes some projection with BPI, but Louisville looks really good. I think the Pat Kelsey hires are paying clear immediate dividends.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone mentioned this too. The schedule the rest of the way, Jim. I mean, it's very easy. Um,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be tougher for a team. Actually, if you're Louisville, you'd rather have a hard schedule than a soft schedule, Kai, because with a team that doesn't have a lot of depth, there's more momentum or more room to fall down the pecking order than you are really to climb or gain spots. But still, you got to go to NC State at Notre Dame. At home against Pitt will probably be a meaningful game, I think. Maybe if Wake plays better that game next Tuesday will mean something. But yeah, I mean, I love Louisville. I'm just pissed I kind of missed the mojo. Like I kind of gave up on it after all the injuries. And it's like, no, it's rocking. Pat Kelsey can still coach hoop.
Yeah. Yeah. Noah Waterman didn't even play against SMU. But Abubakar Traore back has been huge. They're just finding a way. It's impressive with that style to do it without a ton of depth. And yeah, they play one top 65 team the remainder of the year. That's crazy. They've got 11 games left and they play 10 teams outside the top 65. Only that Pitt home game qualifies there. That's the ACC for you. Other teams that had massive two-win weeks, Kai, I'm going to throw it your way to see which one really jumped out to you. Alabama won at Kentucky and versus Vandy. UCLA got back on track, knocking off Iowa and Wisconsin. Texas A&M beat LSU and won at Ole Miss at the buzzer, basically at the buzzer last night. Texas Tech beat Arizona and at Cincinnati. Creighton won at UConn and at DePaul. Wake Forest, Matthew, those Deeks you just mentioned at Virginia Tech versus UNC. I've got a little bit of thought on three of those teams, Kai, but did any of them in particular jump out to you with their performances?
Yeah. First of all, I apologize if my mic is sounding horrible. I don't know what's happening. It's going a little crazy, but hopefully it gets
Sounds
fixed.
like me, Kai, if that matters.
It sounds good to you guys, but I think for the podcast it sounds a little bad. So I will be brief in my words here. I'm surprised Ole Miss faded down the stretch. That's not a Chris Beard thing to do. That's not what they've been doing all season. Texas A&M, impressive win for them. I'll start there, Jim. Wake Forest, I still can't tell if they're back. I know Jim's got a thought on them later, so I won't spoil that one. And then those are the main two that stood out to me. So I'm going to stick with those for now and pass to Matthew.
Matthew, no, you don't want it past.
Oh, sorry, me. I'm Matthew. Texas Tech, real. Creighton becoming kind of real. And then Wake. I think the Wake's what I want to talk about, Jim. Just their way they actually are playing defense this year is encouraging. I still hate their offense.
Yes.
It's
Can I tell you to holster this for my thought
go.
later?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we will discuss a little bit more.
I've been really keen with Wake. I've been really because I just feel like I was really high on this team. We were all high on this team, and like now they're winning a lot of games, but it's not like pretty. And it's just a weird situation because the ACC makes things tough to discern in that conference. I think.
Yes, it does.
With no offense.
The one thing I'll say, Alabama did lose at home to Ole Miss just over a week ago, but they are trending towards a 1 seed again. I think that the preseason hype is starting to look a little bit better. Even without Latrell Wrightsell, the depth is showing up. Aiden Holloway has been a monster for them, living up to the recruiting pedigree that he had going into Auburn last season. So the Tide definitely featuring like a national title contender here. Vandy and West Virginia also mentioned, I know they didn't go 2-0, but they both got huge home wins that are going to look really good on Selection Sunday. Vandy knocked off rival Tennessee, the in-state battle in the Volunteer State. Vandy gets it done. And then West Virginia beat Iowa State, handing them their first Big 12 loss, followed up with a home loss to Arizona State. There's your ups and downs of college basketball right there embodied, but big win for the Mountaineers at home in Morgantown. Kai, are we back yet?
Not really.
I don't know. Okay, we're not back. That's
I might
right.
need to switch mics, fellas.
Okay, well, do what you got to do. We will discuss DePaul and playing possessed, Matthew, because they won a Big East game for the first time in what feels like a million days. Sure, it was at Georgetown without Thomas Sorber and without Jaden Epps, but it counts. It shows up in the win column. I'm happy for the Demons.
I know I am too. It just was such an asterisk next to it, Jim. Like the biggest, handicapped performance because Georgetown looks so bad without Sorber inept in that game. And like to lay an egg at home against Creighton, and they look terrible against Creighton at home too. So I'm happy for him. I'm just bummed. I was hoping there'd be some real momentum with the Big East play this year under Holtman, and I just know that I know everyone said it was a mid-major all-star team, and it does certainly look that way. Especially against a Big East that isn't that great. That's why I think it's been most frustrating. Is that you thought this would be a Big East that they could come in and steal a few. But again, it's still it's still DePaul. It just still kind of has that that demon stink to it that Holman hasn't quite.
Unfortunately, I mean they've lost 3 league games in OT. The Providence,
the Marquette game was better, but then maybe that was a Marquette thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Marquette's got issues of its own. Winning that game at DePaul in OT, and then getting kind of wiped at home by Xavier, controlled wire to wire. They did bounce back against shorthanded Seton Hall on the road, but I'm not sure that really indicates that Marquette's
Seton Hall's a get-right game for the Big East, I think, at this point. That's where I'm at on Seton Hall.
Yes, they are. Matt, Minnesota rolling. Hey, don't bury Ben Johnson quite yet.
I never did.
Michigan
we never did
at home. No, of course not. Buzzer beater from Dawson Garcia from the logo, basically in overtime to beat the Wolverines. And then they followed it up by winning at Iowa, who has some major defensive issues of its own. But the story is that Minnesota's won 2 straight Big Ten games and is above 500 overall. And wow, maybe Ben Johnson's going to stick around for one more year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their roster, like they weren't really healthy to start the year. Like they've kind of had, Mitchell's been back for a while, and they had all their pieces, and they look like a real team. I mean, I don't know if they're going to challenge for anything, but I'm glad Ben Johnson's going to prove to people that he's capable of competing in this league, and not just like he's not just the doormat that I think some people think he is. So I know Bart's probably higher. I get that.
Had they hung on to the Ohio State game and gone and be sitting 11-8 overall, 3-5 in Big Ten,
3-5 in the Big Ten. I know.
They're not dead for the tournament had they hung on to that 2 OT loss. So it's crazy. They're actually not as dead and buried as maybe they might be. Kai, how are we feeling? Oh, he's muted. I can't even hear him. Okay, we're still working.
Boo.
We're still working on tech. That's all right. We'll continue rolling along here. Speaking of buzzer beaters, Northwestern beat Maryland in overtime on a Nick Martinelli baseline inbounds play, cleverly drawn up by Mr. Chris Collins.
Yeah.
Yes, got the blob going. A little lefty flip. Congratulations to the Purple Cats. They also beat Maddie's Hoosiers last night at home.
Which was the most obvious. I think Indiana's like 0-5, and I don't have the stat right. I've witnessed 3 of Indiana's last 4 losses at Welsh Ryan in person. Last night did not go, obviously, but you roll back to Chris Collins.
First hoops game last night?
No, she didn't quite get out there for it. No. But Chris Collins mentioned, I forget who their assistant was, but he has a dedicated guy on staff that does all their baseline out of bounds stuff, like all their set stuff. Like a point person for that. I like that. Like a guy with the playbook that has all the key actions and high leverage spots. I think some other coaches are adapting that too, but cool that he credited him in the post game, and then that's kind of like they have their old specialties on that staff that way. So.
Yeah, good. Well, hey, it showed up in the biggest moment. Matt, who else showed up in a giant moment is our boy, your boy, Barrington Hargress of UC Riverside, put up 40. In the Highlanders upset of UC San Diego. Not great for the 2-bid Big West, but very cool for Mike Magpayo, and his Highlanders. Hargress is a stud. I can't imagine he'll be in Riverside next year, unfortunately. Seems like big payday portal guy, but man, he had a monster performance on a game where you bet Riverside outright. Good job.
They beat UC San Diego. They beat Colorado State at Colorado State. They beat St. Thomas at home. They've got some really nice wins, actually.
They battled at BYU.
Yeah. Yep. Big West is very good. I hope that, again, I think we're rooting for Mike Magpayo to get a better job, and I hope people, AD searches out there to see how good this conference is and, like, look hard at contextualizing how good I think they've been relative to the resources that program has. And Barrington Hargress is awesome. Just a baller.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Kai.
Oh, yes.
I'm on my computer mic now. Fellas, I don't know. It's tough with technology. It's tough. I'd have no excuse because I don't know what's going on.
No excuses. Play like a champion. Rule number 43 or whatever. I don't know. I watched the first hour of Wedding Crashers at like midnight before going to bed in northern Wisconsin this week, so it's fresh on my mind.
Hey Jim, fun thing about that Riverside, our guy Isaiah Moses had 10 assists and no points, and Hargress had 0 assists. It's like a very clear, like, you're the Batman, you're the Robin.
The role delineation, really shook out. No balance in the backcourt there, but hey, it worked. Got them a huge victory. All right, bad loss section. We're maybe a little more critical of the bad losses. It's not just bye games here. Obviously, you can't have bye games in league play. But Gonzaga lost a home game at the WCC, and it was not to St. Mary's. I need to go back through real quick and look at the last time that happened. It's been very rare. They also lost two straight games where neither was to St. Mary's. Dropped an OT one at Oregon State. Shout out to Wayne Tinkle. And then home to Santa Clara, where they gave up triple digits. Kai, I have fully said I kind of out on Gonzaga's ceiling. I just don't think they can defend well enough. I think you're still, per what I've seen in Discord, you're still a little bit of a believer despite this swoon. Where do you currently stand on the zigzags?
I'm still a believer, Jim. Hey, I think Oregon State and Santa Clara are really good teams, and I've never wavered from that. They're both top 65 for KenPom right now. Now, should that be the type of teams that Gonzaga, a supposed title contender, should be losing to? No, not necessarily, but I give them a bit of a pass. I still think this team is very, very, very good. They have the offense to beat anybody in the country. I agree the defense is a little shakier than you would like. That is their weakness. In a tournament setting, though, fellas, it is very realistic Gonzaga gets like a 6 through 8 seed, which would be horrible for anybody on the upper line because Gonzaga would likely be favored in a lot of those matchups against the next team in the second round. Definitely not someone I'd want to see in my bracket if Gonzaga continues on this path.
Matthew, believer, not believer, real quick.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jim. Yeah, defensively, they don't put any pressure on you. It's just too easy to run offense against them right now.
Yep, small guards, not a lot of athleticism, defensive hounding on the wing. That's not what Caleb Battle brings to the table. And then shot blocking at the rim is not overly strong. 230th in the country in block rate. You're not really scared of Graham Ike. That's not what he brings to the table. He's a finisher. He's not a true rim protector.
It's entirely possible I overhyped my guy, Emmanuel Innocenti from Italy. It's very possible I overhyped him.
I think he'll be good there eventually, but I don't think it's like
they're doing like the development thing.
He'll be a stopper right away. Yeah, I mean, freshman from Tarleton State with a sub 100 O rating.
It's like
Gonzaga.
The gap from Tarleton State to Gonzaga is demonstrative.
Mentioned Marquette lost at home as a double-digit favorite to Xavier. It really opened up the Big East title race. St. John's kind of arguably in the driver's seat there now. They survived Xavier in overtime. Creighton and UConn still in the mix despite some shakiness from the Huskies, which I will discuss in one of my thoughts. But yeah, it looked to be Marquette in control. They were odds-on favorite, still the favorite per betting markets, but that game, losing at home, really just opened things up. San Diego State lost at home to UNLV. Definitely a big blow for their Mountain West title hoops. They're way behind the eight ball compared to Utah State and New Mexico. And the UNC lost at home to Stanford. Kai, their whole sell was, look, we played an impossible schedule in the non-con. We have no bad losses. We'll just get enough good wins to get into the tournament. Well, now they have a Q3 loss to the Cardinal. And it's going to introduce some question marks when we get to the tourney, especially with them following it up with a loss to Wake and just generally not a lot of big win opportunities in the ACC.
The resume is not very good, Jim. And now I'm starting to finally hear conversations from North Carolina fans about Hubert Davis. And it's nice to hear about this. We questioned him in 2022. They ended up making the championship game. Okay, you guys are crazy. Now, we did rank them high in 2023. I'm not going to say we didn't, but outright failure, missing the tournament after being number one preseason. And UNC fans were like, hey, we made the championship last year. Last year, they got a freaking 1 seed, and hey, maybe Hubert is the guy. Maybe he is a great coach. I don't know. Now this year, they're kind of seeing the wards show up again when they don't have Armando Bacot in the lineup. I think it was a bad transfer build. I questioned when they brought in Lubin and Tyson as their transfer haul. I like Tyson as an entity by itself, but not necessarily as your star piece for the Tar Heels. And clearly it just hasn't worked so far. Yeah.
Yeah, he's way out of his depth in the ACC. It just, you can see the confidence shaken. He's missing rim when he takes threes. It's bad news bears for him. I hope he gets back to a mid-major spot and performs better next season. Portal giveth, portal taketh away. In our new section, Kai, you titled it Bad Coaching last week. I threw in Rick Barnes' auto benchings to Kai Ziegler with 2 fouls at Vandy. Said after the game, like, no, I had no thoughts of putting him back in with 2 fouls. I mean, this is your 5th-year senior point guard, first team all conference guy, extension of the coach, and you don't even trust him to go into the game. And it clearly tilted towards Vandy. They went on a run extended before halftime. I just don't understand it. I'm going to keep beating this drum. Coaches, you don't have to treat, I believe John Fendler on Twitter was like, you don't treat halftime like an arbitrary setup of when you can play a guy with 2 fouls and when you can't. It makes no sense. There's no logic behind it other than old fashioned, this is the way it's been done, Kai, and we need to continue to get this out of the game.
It's the number one most frustrating thing in the world. Matthew, we win districts if I don't get sat in 5 seconds.
I agree.
In the first half. I don't
put
understand.
him in, coach, put Kai back in.
I don't understand. The first minute is as important as the last minute. I don't know. Rick Barnes is one of the best coaches in college basketball history, and he's doing this. Zakai Ziegler has 2.2 fouls committed per 40 minutes this season. He's not going to pick another foul. If he does, hey, who cares? Look at Golden playing Clayton with however many fouls when he did. That should be the model.
Yep.
I don't understand why it's even a question. It's bizarre to me that this is even a thing, I suppose.
Yeah, he did finish with 4 fouls, but that should not be used as evidence for benching him. Rick Barnes, 338th in the country in 2-foul participation rate. This is clearly what he does. If you get 2 fouls, you're done. And it should not be this way. Perhaps someday we will live in a utopian society, Matt, where there's no auto benching unless it's somebody that constantly lives in foul trouble.
Also 6 fouls. Let's just go 6 fouls.
I don't know if we need 6 fouls, but
I'm okay with 6 fouls.
Nah,
to me, it's fine if we give the stars an extra foul, but as long it's not going to incentivize more fouling because the bonus still remains the same. As long as those team foul rules remain the same, I think it's fine if you're giving the star players, not just star players, but give everyone an extra foul and can we keep them in the game?
I think we talked about this in the offseason. Like a fun rule would be every team gets to pick a guy who can commit 6 fouls.
Who gets 6? I like that.
Like who's your designated 6-foul guy today? I think that would be a fun little extra strategy where you got to think about who's prone to it. Or if you go guy most important, like Tennessee, Ziegler's not likely to get 6. But if you're like, we never want him off the floor, then maybe you make him your 6-foul guy. So that's a fun little thought process or thought exercise. Okay, that's it for We've Saw That. We will now move to 3-man thoughts. We'll give our thoughts for the week that we saw. But Kai, before we do, a shout out to Home Field, another fantastic sponsor of this pod. As I think I also was last week, but wearing my comfy new joggers from Home Field.
That's okay, Jim. I wear the same thing every single day when I work from home, and you really should if you own Home Field apparel. You'll want to. The most comfy collegiate apparel you'll ever own. Home Field does it all. They make shirts and joggers and hoodies and hats for schools of all sizes. The Power 5 schools like Matt's Duke Blue Devils to the D3 schools like Jim's Colorado School of Mines. I actually don't know if they're D3, but they are a lower level school, I know. They do dig through years of archives to understand your school, your fan base, your history. They make thoughtful designs on these t-shirts and hoodies and other goodies, and they put them on the most comfortable material you can possibly imagine. It really is the best college basketball gear, college sports in general gear in the entire world. If you go to homefieldapparel.com today, you can get 15% off your first purchase using our promo code 3MW. If they don't have your school, tweet at them at HomefieldAPPARL. Ask them nicely to get a contract with your school and put some school mascots on a shirt for you. That'd be great. That's Home Field. Wear one for the team. Homefieldapparel.com, promo code 3MW.
It's 3-man thoughts time. Matt, we go to you first. Father of the newest 3-man weave.
Father of mine.
Tell us what you got.
Well, I actually had this thought a couple days ago, and I think the points per game dipped a little bit last night. Anyway, the theme of this thought is just a quick macro observation to see if we're noticing what's happening. Nothing drastic, Kai, but scoring has been up this year. It was up last year, up the year before. It's kind of a continuation of a lot of the things we're seeing. The rule changes have been a big part of that the last couple of seasons, with the charge rule being taken away. Looking at Ken Palm's D1 stat trend page is always helpful with this, but you can see the sustaining of the drop in turnovers related to offensive fouls, and that's been continued this year, same as last year. You actually are seeing a little bit more fouls called this year, though, overall. So you're actually getting more trips to the line for shooters. But point being, we are at a all-time record for points per game at this point in the season. 73 points a game, 146 is the average total in any game in college basketball. That's the highest in the Ken Pom era, matching the 2018 season, I believe, before we then pivoted to the 3-point line getting moved back. So now we're at the point where we have basically matched the efficiency of the old super short. It's funny to think of how short the 3-point line is now. You ever go to like a rec gym or just anything and like you shoot threes and then you see where the college three is. I know it's not NBA, but it's a very big difference. But anyway, and just wanted to kind of to me, it's a huge difference, right? I'm a novice, but it does feel like a huge difference. I just think it speaks to, and I think you can see it when you watch these teams play, even like the lower level teams now, just the rise in skill, the clear emphasis on individual training and stuff like that, and just the willingness that people can shoot deep threes. 3-point attempt rate is up almost 2%, even from last year through this point in the season. And we'll see how that changes. But people are hoisting it from the cheap seats. And, when you see the 3-point percentage basically hover at where it has the last 5 years, 33.5% is the average. It's been around that for like the last 4 seasons. Are we enjoying the perceived better product, Kai, that we're seeing with more scoring? That's I think what we all want to see, right?
Oh,
do we notice it? Because I feel like I have to like, oh yeah, this is a good thing. Like during good changes, we don't always react to them. So I think it's important to appreciate them.
I have noticed it because I'm aware of offensive ratings for teams in KenPom, and
right. I guess we're a little more.
They are extremely inflated from normal. The 40th ranked offensive rating right now was the 15th best 2 years ago. So it is. Good point. You can't really compare perfectly across years, but the point is efficiency is nuts. I mean, Auburn's scoring like 1.3 points per possession this season over that, which is just freaking insane. Scoring is way up. Of course, I love the product. Yeah, the product's great. I also don't believe there's like NBA discourse saying like the 3-pointers ruin the sport. Totally disagree with that notion. That's just
that's a separate conversation. I'm actually willing to have that discussion
totally
at some
bonkers,
point.
In my opinion. Just use it smarter. But yeah, the college basketball product is fantastic.
Work smarter, not harder. Yeah, I mean, we're at the lowest average zone usage ever. Also,
that was
Matthew.
My final point. Yes. Thank you.
It's like half of what it was even 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And partially is because there's so much skill on the floor, and big men are better passers and better shooters, and there's more what you have to worry about. Again, I've said this on Twitter. I don't mind teams not using it as their primary defense. I still think there's a place for zone big time in the sport as like a wrinkle, but that is worth mentioning. And we're at the highest offensive rebound rate in a decade, basically, per KenPom. So you're just seeing teams use bigs a little bit more effectively. The 2 big lineup has been mentioned for a lot of different teams. Michigan, Florida, Gonzaga started this trend. Maryland's using it. Getting more second chances while not sacrificing transition defense as much has been huge for efficiency as well. And I like that trend. I don't want total homogeneity around everybody just fire away threes. Like I like that there's a twist with some teams going 2 bigs and embracing the glass.
Yeah, there's still enough diversity in the style, which is great. But you can start to see the conversions toward like the rim and 3 shot diet, as evidenced by we're setting records for 2-point percentage, field goal percentage, and we're setting records for 3-point percentage. I downloaded the shot quality data, but I don't think I made a mistake or something. I think I'm looking at the wrong. Anyway, but I think if you looked at the overall rim and 3 rate the last 5 seasons, it's certainly increased. And to your point, Kai, about people in the NBA bitching about that, I think it's just an awesome opportunity that at some point there will be a natural inflection where there's a zig against the zag opportunity where you can bring back the old mid-range, and there's actually value in the mid-range because people are just like taking a seat on the floor to watch you shoot an open 10-footer, and maybe kids start practicing those shots more and the percentages on those shots go up even more. Or maybe defenses are so good at defending the rim or so good at defending the 3-point line where you have to, you kind of have to ebb and flow with the natural evolution of the game. That's why I think, instilling rules to mess with that, it just feels unnatural to me. Let the game living organism take its course. Anyway, Jim, macro thought for me. And to your zone point real quick, I had a note on that too. I think because you have so much turnover year to year too, it's just so hard to institute a zone right in the offseason. It's just very hard to, I think you should always have one, but I do understand coaches' reluctance to really lean into it because I think the continuity, as I think discerned, does matter with that, with teaching kids how to play in that and, read, react and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I will say some of the teams that play it have seen success. South Alabama is
South
making the Sun
Alabama,
Belt favorite.
Richie.
Utah State, Mountain West favorite, playing a ton of zone. Merrimack is giving teams problem in the MAAC, which Kai will discuss in a second. We can pivot to that whenever. VMI has been much better defensively this year. Not great, but better, playing a ton of
I mean,
zone.
it's the
Elon,
best
etc. Like
year they've had in forever, and it's all because of zone, basically. Yeah,
same with Elon. Yes. So
Elon.
it
Yeah.
can still be a major, major asset if you're executing it properly and you take time to teach it. So I do think it should not go by the wayside. All right, Kai, we'll go to you. Your first thought. You can pick whichever direction you want to go in with yours.
Well, let's see here. What was my second one? Let's go Indiana. Let's talk the Hoosiers, Hoosiers, or the Boo Boo Boo
Hoosiers.
Hoosiers, because the Indiana Hoosiers booed Mike Woodson against Illinois, which was a little bit jarring to hear from the faithful at Assembly Hall, and you could clear it or hear it very, very, very clearly. Um, Not happy are Indiana fans with the Mike Woodson show right now. They got smoked by Illinois that game. Now, ironically, the very next game, they won at Ohio State, which is a huge win, especially if the Buckeyes just beat freaking Purdue at Mackey. They followed that up with losing to Northwestern. What's strange is through this discourse, and I have like Indiana people I talk to sometimes, you would think that Indiana has like one win in conference play and 5 wins on the year, and there's no hope for the tournament. They're still right in the hunt. They're 5-4 in the Big Ten. Before the Northwestern game, they were top 35 in resume metrics to make the tournament. They're 3-6, I think, with Q1 and Q2 now. With that Northwestern loss, they have no bad losses, so they are in the hunt for the NCAA tournament. Is that what fans want? I'm not really sure. This team clearly needs to move on. It's just kind of an awkward spot because you hired a legend. He has been around the block in terms of the NBA. He's well known. It is tough to fire a guy like that. Hello, Patrick Ewing. But this will be the fourth straight year out of four of Woodson's tenure that he's underperformed his Ken Palm preseason rank. He's not a good coach. This offense has no plan. There's no killer instinct on this team, Matthew. It's all just very muted. Omar Ballo is the only guy that seems to be trying. Galloway tries hard, but I think he just tries hard because he wants to try hard and look like he's trying hard. I don't know if he's actually doing anything with purpose on the floor. And you're playing Anthony Leal 30 minutes a game. This just cannot happen. He had 5 turnovers last game against Northwestern. Matthew, who do they get? Do you want Woodson gone? Can they get Dusty May? Your thoughts?
Yes,
Matt,
they can.
Can you shed some light on the Quinn Buckner thing of it all too? He's like the super loyalist to Woodson.
So basically, I don't know enough about it, Kai, but basically, Woodson is protected by higher ups, and that's sort of shielded him from, I think, a loud groan of the family. But now I think that shield has been penetrated. I think now you're starting to see some of the cracks where it's. I would be minus 500 that he is not coaching next season. It's probably even higher than that, actually, maybe minus 1,000. Maybe even higher than that. I think through it. Brad Stevens, Dusty May.
You got to make him say no.
They're going to be on the horn.
Well, does Dusty
join the Discord, folks? Lots of inside. Yeah. Lots of rumors going around.
Would Dusty May take Indiana, do you think? I know you know him extremely well.
Yes, I think he would. I think it's the only job he'd leave Michigan for, just because he was there for years. And I think he's a true, he used to go on Indiana local radio shows when he was at FAU, with his because he's from Evansville area, I think, or something. I don't know. Maybe not, but we'll see. I think they're going to, Dusty May will get a phone call though. Sorry, Michigan fans.
He'll get a call, but we'll see. We'll see if he takes it. I mean, who knows how well the Wolverines do in the postseason this year, if it just kind of ends up entrenching him. Or, Matt, if he goes far in the tournament, maybe Indiana doesn't want to wait that long in the search. We saw that happen with the UConn assistants. God. They go far, and teams like, look, we got to fill a job. Can't wait and find out if those guys are going to say no. Mm-hmm. So a lot of variables still going there. It does seem like, the Woodson thing has run its course. It's time. Just going to be how messy of an ending can it end with Indiana in the tournament? Because as Kai mentioned, there's still like a 20% chance by every single projection system that they could get there. So I'm curious.
It's a lot. I mean, like UNC, very similar. It's just so hard to really suck at those schools. That's why the bar is high, but it probably should be high. So,
yeah. Okay. My first thought is an "Are they back?" type of discussion on 3 teams that I liked a ton coming into the season. They struggled, and now they're starting to look pretty darn solid. That would be Texas Tech, Wake Forest, and Creighton, as mentioned. And we saw that all teams that went 2-0 over this past week, they each had some big wins. Texas Tech is now up to 11th in Ken Palm, 14-4 overall, 5-2 in the Big 12. They have won every Big 12 road game, 4-0. Christian Anderson is a baller, the freshman who has really gotten himself into the rotation, hit some big shots. He's got the swagger, I think, that they needed a little bit of in the backcourt. And JT Toppin is back, averaging 20 and 12 over his last two games. Wake Forest has made the switch to getting Tyler Johnson in the starting lineup. We always thought this was maybe going to be necessary to open up and free up Salas. And Johnson's been really solid, good defensively, and then also just letting Salas focus on scoring. So Wake's won 6 in a row. They're up 30 spots from their bottom Ken Palm ranking. Still can't shoot. As Matt said, the offense is still a little bit of a pain, but they're defending. They've got great size up front. And then Creighton, it's Kalkbrenner. It's impossible to be bad with Ryan Kalkbrenner on the team. He's too dominant on both ends of the floor at the rim. The defense is still the same, mega drop. They don't force turnovers, they don't foul, but you can't get easy buckets. And then Stephen Ashworth has become a true stud. He's second in the Big East in usage, and he's 28th nationally in assist rate. He's become like the true ball in his hands at all times type of point guard that maybe we didn't think he could be. We thought he'd have to play next to more of a creator. Hasn't been the case. So shout out to Ashworth's development. Even Jemiah Neal been pretty solid for them. Kai, which one of these teams really jumps out to you as somebody that you're keeping an eye on going forward?
Well, it's nice seeing Texas Tech back where we expected them preseason. This team is still one I totally believe in. Yeah, Christian Anderson's just a cherry on top, man, of what we thought this team could be. Because I really didn't factor him into the equation in the preseason. I still love this team to be a dark horse Final Four contender. Now that he's emerging as one of their best weapons offensively, it really is awesome. We love Grant McCaslin, of course, fantastic coach. So Texas Tech, incredible. Wake, I'm still not totally there yet. The 3-point shooting has gotten better. They're somehow they're 4% higher in conference play than overall, but it's 28-32. It's like it was
still
that
bad.
low.
Yeah.
But Forbes, he's not playing Parker Friedrichsen as much. Yeah, no crap to Steve Forbes. These coaches that get their fixation on playing one guy, it's usually a white guard that can't do anything. For some reason, hustler in practice, whatever it is, coaches get fixation on playing them way too many minutes. It's Hefner at Texas A&M.
Subtweeting Hayden Hefner, I love that.
Yeah, I don't understand. He's not the best option. He's figuring it out. ACC's horrible. I hope Wake makes the tournament. I think there'll be an early exit, though, unfortunately. Creighton, yeah, they're getting back to where we thought they'd be. Again, not a killer elite team, but a very, very good one.
Yep. Matt, your thoughts? You wanted to talk Wake a little bit earlier.
Yeah, well, so Wake, I like how we use Forbes back to our zone conversation. They use some zone late in that UNC game. I think they've been a little more versatile. This feels like a Forbes, kind of a throwback Forbes, right? He's kind of the East Tennessee State teams, bigger, more physical. But I still don't see the offensive gear quite yet. I think there's just too much on Hunter Salas's plate, and the key thing with him is he's guarding the other team's best player. I think he is their best on-ball defender. At least that's how Forbes sees him. And I don't like that. I think it's a problem. Your best player also has to shadow it's just a lot. It's a taxing burden. I think that's what kind of wore down Tyrese Proctor at Duke last year, a couple of years ago. So I like when you have a defensive stopper in your go-to creator who has everything, can kind of not take a rest on defense, but not be like exerting 125% for 40 minutes with a team that's not that deep. So that's my Wake concern. And Jim Creighton, I think the rotations make a ton of sense. I just think that the way they defend, they're hard to, you have to beat them with a very well executed scheme to get shots at the right spots to work around Kalk, and that's just tough to do.
Yeah, you know what shots are going to be there, but they're not high value shots. It's the mid range stuff that guys aren't that good at, and you're not getting free points at the rim or at the free throw line. They do a nice job of playing the math there. They want to out jump shoot you, and with the way Trout and McAndrew are playing, plus Ashworth, like they're typically going to be able to do that. The Wake thing, Matt, you're mentioning, like the reliance on Salas, not having a ton of depth in terms of playmaking. That's probably why they suck against Q4 competition. They don't blow anybody out.
There's been
it's just the same process for trying to beat those teams. They can't smash people on the offensive glass. They don't have shooting. It's just methodical to try to get points every single time. But now against ACC competition, it's basically the same as trying to get points against a Q4 team. They don't have the gear, but that doesn't necessarily mean they are not, or doesn't necessarily mean they're drawing dead for postseason contention. We'll see.
Yeah. Hey, their schedule gets way harder in February. They got Duke this weekend, and they go to Louisville on a quick turnaround. Then they got Pitt coming in, and then they go out the West Coast to do the Stanford Cal thing, which, I mean, who knows how that goes. So, yeah, this could be like, oh, Wake's dead.
Games.
Exactly. They could lose all those games.
Yeah, they've played a really light schedule. Well, the worst ACC schedule so far in the league.
I mean, Miami's not a real team, and Virginia Tech's a mid-major team at this point. So
that's true.
Yeah, only being Miami by 10 when Miami's losing by 43 to SMU and 37 to Stanford and 35 to Duke. Like that. Yeah, you only being them by 10 tells you that Wake Forest can't pull anybody out. They just can't do it. Okay, second thought, Matthew. How many do you have? Do you have two or do you have three?
I just have two.
Okay, well, we'll go to you. We'll go to number two for you.
Let's go. I'm gonna have a list of this or that's. Sorry, I'm pulling my sheet here.
Good, fun. I like
just quick, rapid fire. I know. I want to have the audio dub of the clip. What commercial is that?
The hamsters,
Zion,
the Kia,
Kia Scion, whatever it's called. Yeah, the Kia card models.
The hamsters. Yes.
VCU or any other team in the A10, Jim. This is my kind of one-off.
VCU. Yeah. I mean,
I know. I'm just so in on VCU. There's been, yeah.
I don't remember how many weeks ago it was, but I bet you VCU would finish ahead of Dayton in standings and Ken Pom, and you never quite took it, and I'm sad. I wish you had.
They're clear number one. Yeah.
Hi, how about Memphis or UAB?
Well, I hope it's UAB, but I'm going to say Memphis is better.
Yeah, I know. UAB is playing really well. That's why I wanted to bring it up. I still think it's Memphis, but I think we're going to be talking about this as a serious conversation in a month or so.
Axel Lindeborg is getting a lot of love for doing a lot of things that haven't really been done in college basketball, like the combination of his stats. Just Twitter, Google him or something like that. It's been impressive lately for him.
He's 31% assist rate in
That's
American
pretty
play.
good.
Number 3 in the league to add to being a double machine. Yeah. Matt, my answer is Memphis still.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I was jumped the gun there, but I mean UAB still outside the top 100 in KenPom, and they just beat UTSA by 3. But like the ceiling in runway is very impressive, and I still think there's a Memphis self implosion bomb that could detonate as we've seen the last couple. Of
UAB
seasons.
number 1 offense in American play.
In American so far, yeah. Defense they get leaky sometimes. Jim, let's go Oregon, UCLA, Big Ten West Coast. Those are the two I had written down.
Oh, I'll keep quacking. I'll stay stubborn to my Oregon guns. I know they lost at home at the buzzer to UCLA earlier in the season, but I like the upside a little more with their guard play. Shellstad continuing to rise. Bamba, I kind of know what he is and believe in him. Same with Bartholomew. And UCLA has just been a little too up and down. Not great when they leave LA. So I will take the Ducks.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going Ducks by a beak.
By a beak. I
Yes.
love it.
Okay. The Valley and the Ivy. Bradley Drake, Kai.
Ooh.
I watched them both play last week. That's why I wanted to get
My eye test is Drake, Matthew. But I still believe in this Bradley team.
I know. I think I have Bradley rated higher, but I think Drake is my gut answer. So
yeah, I'm around the same. Actually, KenPom, they're 74-75. So I mean,
they're right. Yeah,
they're
next to each other. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay brave, Matt. But
okay,
for your title race, I think you got to handicap it for Drake because they have the win at Bradley. Yep.
How about Ivy, Jimbo? A lot of man, I don't know. Princeton's been playing with fire. Xavier Lee's been doing some heroic things. Them versus Yale. I think the correct answer is Yale. I still said Princeton, and as a selfish backer of a future ticket, I hope they come through with it. But anything has changed in your pecking order in this league?
Yale's a better team, which I did not expect at all coming into the season. Maybe some Caden Pierce involved, but not getting Devin Austin back has been a real problem for Princeton. It was going to have no depth anyways. And Kai, I just can't understand how Yale didn't win this league last year. And now suddenly they're going to win it this year. So I've been playing whack-a-mole with my Ivy futures.
I don't get it either. Yale has shown the ability to blow teams out in the Ivy play. Aside from Columbia, who's a good team, Princeton has skated by 3 straight teams. I think Yale is much better right now.
All right, last one here. The Mountain West, which is just like, who the hell knows at this point? At first I had New Mexico versus Utah State, but then I had San Diego State in there, but maybe they're not any good. Anyway, who's best team in the Mountain West, Kai? We'll say a this or that or this or that. or them, this or
I,
that or
I don't
other.
know. I still kind of stubbornly say San Diego State, but I don't think that's necessarily correct. I guess I'll go New Mexico. Well, Utah State's right there. Nevada's dead as a doornail. I don't know. It's a weird league. It's a toss up. Should be a fun conference tournament.
Yeah,
I'll go.
very fun
I'll go.
concert.
I'll get on the spectrum with Utah State, Matthew. The Spectrum
Yeah,
Center
that's where I went
boys.
to.
They've just got more options. Like New Mexico is the best player. Donovan Dent's the best player, but I think Utah State can go to different guys in the zone, and I think that versatility and depth gives me a little more appeal to them.
Yeah, I mean they got a couple of and they had that huge illness or no, like they got hit by the norovirus pretty hard. Utah State did. I mean, you kind of remove that, they've been pretty bulletproof, and the other teams are too flawed for me to trust them. New Mexico close, but I'm gonna go to Utah State. I'm with you. All right, that's it. Actually, I had a no, that was it. I had OVC one, but like I don't care about the OVC. No one does. So move on.
All right,
Draw the
Kai.
name out of a paper bag for the OVC.
Nice. I'm gonna holster my third thought, Kai, so we can go to you
Okay,
for your second.
let's do it. We're talking mid-major. Whoa, wait a second. Just a couple zoom ins on some of the races here. Number one, the Horizon League. Cleveland State, fellas. I took this team as a future in the Horizon in the preseason because the price was nuts. I didn't expect it to really win. They're 9-1 right now in the Horizon. An extremely impressive job
2 game
by,
lead.
yes.
Yeah,
How do you pronounce Robinson's first name? Danielle?
I
I
think
just
did
call
he,
him Dan.
Dan
yeah,
Robinson.
Daniel.
Dan
Some people call
Robinson.
him just Dan Robinson.
Uh, they
I think
lost a
that's
lot
pretty
from
short.
last year and should have really been a middle of the pack team this year. But best offense in the league right now, number 5 turnover rate defensively in the country. And Tevin Smith has been balling for them. A guy I remember because he was one of Denver's highest ever recruits back in the class of 2022. Jeff Wolbram, when I talked to him, really hyped him up as a freshman and sophomore. Didn't do a ton at Denver. He was there at Cleveland State last year. Didn't do a ton. Now he is like a certifiable stud in the Horizon. So Cleveland State has been wildly impressive defensively, offensively, all around.
They took two like high risk, high reward transfers. The guys that have been really injury prone, like Taj Stavesky barely played at Canisius last year, and then Abrima Deba has been a complete injury disaster since he was at
Yep.
Coastal Carolina. Tried to play at South Carolina 2 years, never really worked out. But he's like the big, versatile 6'6" point guard. So it takes some playmaking stress off of Stavesky. Yeah, they're fun. I think they took some gambles with the roster, and they needed to because what they lost, and it's worked out for them, which is rather impressive out of Mr. Robinson.
Agreed. Matthew, anything to add? You looked like you wanted to say something.
Coach Oates' disciple doing
Is
doing
he?
the thing where you
Coach
Really?
Otts. Little
Coach
bit.
Otts, sorry, Coach
Oh,
Otts.
Otts. I was like, is he Oates?
I,
Yeah. Otzelberger
ever
makes
since
way more
Jim's
sense.
overnight overnight oats thing and the connection between the whatever I can't ever Coach Otzelberger, former assistant. So yes, we should not be surprised he is overachieving consistently.
Two more mid-major races, we'll say. The Ace Sun, very fun. This tournament is always one of the best, by the way, in conference play or conference tournament play. It's going to be awesome to watch again. It's a 4-way tie right now at the top of the league. All these teams are 5-1. Lipscomb, Florida Gulf Coast, Jacksonville, and Queens are all 5-1. And North Alabama might be or is just as good as these teams at 4-2. I think Lipscomb is still ahead above the rest of the league. They have the best player. I think they probably have the best coach as well. But all these teams are scrappy. It's the 6th most efficient league in America, so every team can pretty much score, and no team plays defense. Again, really fun conference tournament is in store for us. Will be very interesting to see how this race shakes out. About time Gulf Coast. Jamie, talk about Yale not being able to win the Ivy last year. How about Gulf Coast never competing for the ASUN title last couple of years with the roster they've had, and all of a sudden they're sitting at the top of the league.
Yeah, this is not their best roster.
No,
Like
it's
the
the
last
worst.
3 or 5 years or something. Yeah, and suddenly they're up there. I guess maybe it just fits better for Chambers. Yeah, I still think Lipscomb's the best team. They got that home loss to Queens, and then they won by 19, 34, and 28. Like, all right, we're mad. You poked the bear here with us, but it was against bottom dregs of the conference. But Kai, you mentioned the conference tournament. I love it because it's home court, and you're going to see some
Yeah.
great environments in this league.
Yeah, we had Jacksonville in the championship game last year against Stetson. I mean, Stetson was number 2 seed, but Jacksonville's the 8th seed in that conference. It was nuts.
Oh yeah, and you had like the semifinal game with Austin P. It went
Yeah,
to
seven
triple
seed.
overtime.
Yeah,
Like it's bizarre stuff.
it's great. And in the MAC, the Metro Atlantic, 3-team race. I do somehow have a future on all three of these teams. I'm excited. I don't know what I was thinking in the preseason, but it worked. Quinnipiac 7-1 and Merrimack and Marist at both 6-1. All three of these teams are projected to finish at least 4 games up on the fourth place team. So it's a very like separated MAC than we're used to. A more separated MAC where 3 teams have really established themselves. Where it's usually kind of a cluster after maybe one team. Usually that's Iona. Not this year. The Bobcats, Quinnipiac, they were the quasi favorites, or maybe full on favorites heading into the year. But for me, I test Merrimack is the best I've seen. I have watched more of them than other teams in this league, but that weird zone, plus Bud Clark, who is arguably the best player in this league, they're the most impressive. They'd be my horse to back in the conference tournament. Quinnipiac did beat them, but I do believe in Merrimack in the long run. And then Marist, Matt, your boy John Dunn, their coach, their defense, lockdown, true Dunn fashion. Not a fun team to watch. Brought a ton back from last year, though, and the defense is really propelling them right now.
Yeah, it's Merrimack. I think that's the only team that's like I'm excited about winning this conference because every other team in this league has no chance to do anything in the tournament. At least Merrimack's a fun story, right? And Bud Clark's a fun player, and he's a guy that could certainly take over a half or a game on a high-profile setting. And he, much like I think Abdi Bashir at Monmouth, like the 2 mid-major guards who are like very, I think, openly like in the portal or just like very clearly getting coached openly by major suitors. And they are fun players. So they'll hopefully get a good showcase opportunity.
It'll be a 16 most likely.
Yeah, they should be. Yeah.
Last 2 games of the year for Merrimack High, home to Quinnipiac and at Marist. So the race will probably decide it in the final week there.
I hope Merrimack makes the tournament, man. They've been, I mean, they deserve it for winning the freaking NEC and then not being able to go. They deserve it. That ends my thought, Jim.
So ends your thought. Okay, we're going to end 3-minute thoughts then with a UConn discussion because we can only put so much blame on Liam McNeely being out, and I know Caravan's been a little bit limited too, but this team has been unconvincing for weeks now. They're down to 35th in KenPom. They're not covering games. They're 2-6 against the spread their last 8. Tells you what they've done versus expectations. 2 home OT wins over Xavier and Butler, like likely non-tournament teams. Providence took them down to a 1-possession game at home, although it was a little bit more of a convincing performance. Obviously, they had the at Villanova loss. They lost at home to Creighton. What is the actual ceiling for them, Kai, when they get McNeely back? How much do you believe in them now? We're going to separate the Hurley of it all and just kind of talk about the on-court product. I mean, they're hugely reliant on Hassan Diarra, and I know you and I have been a little skeptical of him long term.
Yeah, I don't think he's having necessarily a bad year, Diarra, but I don't think he can be your guy, your number one player, and you're also trying to contend for a title. In that, I guess, scenario, their defense is terrible. It's 133rd in the country, and that's what holds them back, and I think will ultimately be their demise. This team's not as firepower-y as the last couple of years. They don't have as many pros right now. I think a lot of these guys will be pros someday, but I think right now, ready to be drafted in the NBA and produce like Hurley's had the last couple of years, you're not really finding that in the roster. They're behind like North Carolina and KenPom right now. They're behind Pitt. This team's really tuckered out a little or petered out a bit. I do think McNeely is a huge deal, so we need to caveat a little bit. But to your point, Jim, I mean, Xavier overtime was with McNeely. The win at Butler, the barely win, was with McNeely. They lost to Colorado with McNeely. They lost to Dayton by 18. It's not the same team. Hurley can't just wave a magic wand. He needs good players to succeed, as all coaches do. I think their ceiling is like second weekend, Matthew. I don't see this team making the Final Four again.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Final Four team. But it comes down to McNeely and Caravan. I think, they've only had 2 games really when they've been back. I think the Texas game, they looked really impressive, right? And then Gonzaga. And then Samson Johnson missed the Xavier game. They looked pretty good against Xavier. And then Butler is when it got a little dicey. And then DePaul is when McNeely got hurt, and he's been out since. and that's when the other 3-2 in that stretch with some close calls, obviously against some teams. I Yeah, I just think it's going to be this team has no margin for error this season. I just don't think the talent's like it's not as deep. So if you have um, any sort of limping or non-existing of McNeely or Caravan, that's going to be a problem. So I think that's where they're at this point.
Yep. I'd be remiss. We mentioned with some other teams when this is the case, but they've had some bad shooting luck defensively. And
Yeah.
teams are
Hmm.
making all kinds of threes, 37% for the season, almost 38% in league play. Teams are making 80% of their free throws against them in league play. Like that's
Yes.
really tough to deal with. And is impacting the defensive numbers. But they also foul a ton. You get comfortable at the line when you have that and probably fouling the wrong type of guys. The defense does not stress you in terms of like they're not harassing defensively, so maybe the jump shooters are comfortable. I think they're contributing a little bit to those numbers, but you can hope for some positive regression. But if they do get that, Kai, they're still probably like 100th on defense. It's not like a
Yeah.
good defense suddenly.
I want to be clear, still a dangerous team. Like if they're a 4, 5, or 6 seed, I'm not sure I'm going to pick against them in the tournament because this coaching staff has been there a few times. They kind of know what they're doing on short turnaround. But still, it's not the same level of team it was the last couple of years.
If you're a 3 seed, would you rather have UConn or Gonzaga as your 6 seed? Fully
Oh,
healthy UConn.
man, that's a really good question.
I ask the tough ones,
I think I'd
Kai.
rather see UConn, to be honest. And no, it's not disrespect. Gonzaga has got a great coach as well, Mark Few. I think Gonzaga's talent, I think, is better. Their offense is better. Their
Yeah,
team
I
is
think I
better.
generally agree with you. I think the upside on a given day of offense is a little bit higher for
Mhm.
Gonzaga. For people listening, Matthew is attending to his child, so
Yes.
we're not going to get his opinion on UConn versus Gonzaga there. That's okay. But that Kai, that wraps it up for 3 man thoughts. Let's get into some quick weekend previews. We got one game Friday, 4 Saturday, and one big one in the American on Sunday, which is relevant to a discussion we just had. So we'll start Friday, Michigan at Purdue. Little bounce back here from two Big Ten teams. Michigan got that buzzer-beating loss at Minnesota. Purdue lost at home to Ohio State,
Yeah.
despite
Wow.
leading that game by 15 at times. I'm going to go with team not losing in Mackey twice in a row here, Kai. I think the Purdue offense, which is so hinged on Braden Smith in ball screens, is going to work against drop coverage too big Michigan.
Mhm.
Now, can they stop the double big man pick and roll? TBD. Might be a lot of points in this game, but I think bounce back at Mackey for the Boilers.
I think it's a bounce back as well. That was the first loss at Mackey in, I don't know, a million games. It's been a long time. Shocking. I, I think I think Michigan's ball handling is going to be tested a lot in this game, Jim. I said this on last podcast. Purdue, number one turnover rate defensively in the Big Ten. They've been really defending on the perimeter. Not really a Matt Painter thing, forcing turnovers. This year they've been doing it. Michigan's ball handling has been really bad. I do like Purdue in this game as well.
Boiler up. That's what we say. Okay, on to Saturday. The big one in the Big 12. It's not quite Houston, Iowa State, but Houston at Kansas, heading to the Fog, where KU showed a little bit of vulnerability. Lost to West Virginia, down at half to Arizona State. The Cougars, though, may or may not have Emmanuel Sharp after he rolled his ankle and missed the Utah game on Wednesday night. See if he can get back for this one. I don't even know. Maybe it doesn't matter. Arsenault is terrific and gives them even more
Yeah.
length. They've got a terrific defensive unit against that KU offense that's a little bit limited and mid-range reliant. I think the Cougars went on the road and kind of send the message to people that, all right, you kind of wrote us off early because we lost 3 games, but we're still here. We're still a contender.
Yeah, they're awesome. Houston is an incredible team. They're 7-0 in the Big 12 for a reason. Now they have no Q1 wins. This was pointed out. Uh, this team is amazing, and I think they have like something like 10 Q1 games coming up. So we're going to see what the real Houston is. Will they be favored again, Jim, in the Fog? Because Kelvin Sampson made that a big deal last year when they were favored at KU, and he thought that was crazy for them to be favored at the Fog. It should be around a pick. I think Houston is the much better team from an eye test perspective, from a analytical perspective. Their defense is just way too good. I've seen this Kansas offense sputter. I've seen them struggle with turnovers, especially against Mizzou, and that's just not something you can do against Houston. I also think Houston's just going to eat them on the glass too. So the Cougars for me in this one, winning at Fog.
Fire up Cougs. Yeah, and Kansas may or may not have KJ Adams, so I should mention that along with the
Yes.
Manuel
Yes.
Sharp personnel deficiency. Also, I do believe Houston had two quad one wins like 2 days ago,
Oh,
and
they fell
then West
out.
Virginia
Ah,
lost at home, fell out of the top 30, and UCF fell out of the top 75. So the road win there is now narrowly Q2. So yeah, that's the trouble with the arbitrary cutoff points. That's why we love wins above bubble, where Houston is now up to like 15th in the country, despite not having that top 10 win. If you consistently beat good teams, that should count for something
yes.
in addition to beating great teams. Ole Miss at Mizzou, Kai. Our Tigers reeling from a loss in Texas where the offense looked really, really terrible, especially down the stretch. And then Ole Miss off the collapse at home against Texas A&M, giving up the three to Obaseki with 12 seconds left. I think it's a bounce back for the Tigers. I think they can handle what Ole Miss wants to do, but both teams love to play kind of smallish. Mark Mitchell versus Malik Dia at center is going to be a battle a lot, as
Hmm.
nominal centers at least. I'm very intrigued to see this one, Kai, but I think Mizzou gets back on track, particularly from the perimeter where they struggled mightily in Austin.
Yeah, gosh, I wish Ole Miss would have won that game against Texas A&M. I don't love Ole Miss on a two-game losing streak coming into Mizzou trying to get right. But I kind of agree. It sets up well for Mizzou, assuming Dennis Gates doesn't F around with his lineups too much. That's been my main critique of him all season. Uh, I think Mitchell's a great matchup for Dia. I don't think many SEC teams have this dynamic Mitchell brings, which is super mobile player that can play the five, but also has the strength to play the five. I think it's a great matchup for Dia, who can pull guys to the perimeter and often has a speed advantage. And he also has a strength advantage, usually against smaller guys. I think Mitchell is a total, what do you want to call it, a deterrent to Dia, a natural deterrent. And I think Mizzou, the way Ole Miss packs it in, I think Mizzou, that plays right into their hands. They love to shoot threes. They want to shoot threes. They can shoot threes. I think it sets up nicely for them. So Mizzou, surprisingly, Jim, I'm going with the Tigers.
Yep, a lot of ball handlers on the Tigers too to worry about against that big pressure from Ole Miss, top 10 in defensive turnover rate. Got to take care of it against them. And then Ole Miss does foul quite a bit, 237th nationally in free throw rate defensively. And we know Mizzou loves to live at the free throw line. And they're back home, should set up well for a
Yeah.
team that wants to get to
Mhm.
the stripe. Tennessee at Auburn. Shocking to see this KenPom number at -8.
Yeah.
Certainly won't be 8 on when Saturday lines come out with Chennai Broom questionable, unlikely to play. But it really hasn't bothered Auburn all that much. Last time they played in the jungle without him, they beat top 20 Ole Miss by 1,000. And
Miss
Tennessee,
State,
a
yeah.
little, yeah, Mississippi State, sorry. Tennessee a little bit back on track. Lanier knocking down shots again after his like mini slump. But it's a little bit of a one-dimensional offense against Auburn that can kind of do a ton of different things. I think Auburn wins, but in a close one. So I would, I guess, if it was a spread, I'd lean towards the Vols.
I agree with you. I think this is the one game Broom's absence is felt a little bit for Auburn, just because of how physical Tennessee is on the glass up front, their entire identity. I think that's a big deal when you're a little bit thin up front. I think Cardwell is still amazing for Auburn, but I think Tennessee has that little edge. I do think Tennessee keeps it very close. This team rocks. Auburn rocks. Should be an awesome game. I think both are both top five. I don't pay attention to the AP poll. I know Auburn's number one. I assume Tennessee's right there. Um, should be fireworks. Yeah, it's not going to be 8. It'll be closer to 5 or 4. I would lean towards the Vols a bit there.
And might see some more Jaheim Hudson for Auburn, who played
He
18
was
minutes
pretty
against
good
Georgia.
last game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's competent.
I
I
was
mean, played
impressed.
at SMU in the American. Like, he's not a complete drag. For a guy that's your emergency big off the bench, that's not too bad of an option to have. Okay, UConn at Xavier, Kai, a rematch of a game that went to OT that we mentioned in stores. Or wait, I think that was in Hartford. I'm sure UConn fans will yell at me that it was actually one of the ones at Hartford. Xavier with a 1 point favorite spread here for what we're looking at Ken Palm. I think Xavier gets it done. UConn's just been playing with fire a little
Yeah.
too much. It doesn't sound like McNeely's return is super imminent, where he's going to suddenly be full form here. And Xavier's trended up a little bit with
Mhm.
that win at Marquette, and we know what their guards can do. They almost won at St. John's, probably should have won at St.
Yeah.
John's. They're playing well.
Yeah, it's UConn's playing with fire, trending down a bit. I mean, lost to Villanova, barely got away from Georgetown, lost to Creighton, barely got away from Butler. Not a good trend for a Xavier team that has a pretty good home court. number one, and to your point, is playing better. The Villanova game, Xavier probably should not have covered or won, but they did. They beat Marquette at Marquette, extremely impressive. And yeah, just took St. John's to overtime. They can hang with UConn. They can compete on their home floor without McNeely, especially. I lean towards Xavier getting it done as well.
Yeah, with Conwell, McKnight, Foster, Maddox, that is I've got some background at the Cox household. But the shooting that Xavier has, I don't know if you're going to get the regression you're hoping for from UConn. We mentioned that with their defense, but I don't know if that's the game where it's gonna turn out. Okay, last but not least, Sunday, huge one for the American title race for the regular season. Memphis laying 12 per KenPom. Kai, we think Memphis stinks as a big favorite. Is that going to be the case against UAB? TBD. But yeah, this is a big one. UAB definitely trending up with that great offense we mentioned in league play. This is one I think is a close game, Kai. I actually do trust the Memphis guards a little bit more than UAB, so I'm going to go with the Tigers at home.
Yeah, again, rooting for UAB for our future's sake, Jim. Although I think I got Memphis at a pretty good number as
Yeah,
well.
I actually prefer Memphis in my
Yeah.
future. So
Uh, UAB was a team we thought, well, at least I thought, was a top 50 team coming into the year. That's how good I thought this team could be. They did not show it throughout the non-con. You could argue they really haven't shown it in AAC play despite their recent surge. The glass is the key battle here for UAB. Best offensive rebounding team in the conference, one of the best in the country. Memphis, one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the entire country. That's gonna be the difference. Can Memphis handle Yaxel, Landeborg? We'll see. 12 is way too much. I think Memphis wins this game. I have a hard time seeing UAB going out on the road and beating Memphis outright, Jim. But I do think they can keep it pretty close.
yeah, both these teams really thrive in kind of the underdog, let's play up against competition type of role, which sets up a little bit better for UAB situationally there. But I don't think Memphis is going to have the same kind of sleepwalk that they do against East Carolina or something as they are going to against UAB, which they should know. This is your biggest competition, the team that won the American tournament last year. This is where you got to show up. And I know Memphis roster turned over, but still. I expect a little bit more of an engaged Tigers, the way you get them in the non-conference in that gauntlet that they played. So I will go with Memphis as well, but in a close one. Okay, Kai, that's it for weekend previews. Let's wrap it up with a couple quick reviews from our listeners and get the people out of here.
Yes, two reviews. Now, we weren't sure if we read this one already, but it said recently. So either Ryan Kochbrenner, great name, either he did it again or did a new one. Either way, best college basketball pod out there. He says we won't find the same analysis from any other podcast in the college basketball space. The Burner Cord, yes, the Burner Discord has made him rich in knowledge and money by asking for betting analysis and thoughts, not only on Power 5, but also the bottom barrel teams, the SWAC teams. He says we kill it, and he looks forward to every single Thursday. We appreciate it, Ryan Kochbrenner.
And he says he can tell we're actually friends, which warms my heart, Kai.
That's
I
true.
like
We
that.
are friends. We're going to a bachelor party next weekend. It should be
Sure
fun.
are.
And then second review here, Mick's master plan. Do you think Mick Cronin's tirades against his teams are tactical? He hates the transfer culture of modern athletics. When he goes on his rants calling his players stupid, etc., perhaps he's thinking that will scare away the weak, lazy, and spineless kids from wanting to transfer to UCLA. Instead, kids who want to be challenged and held accountable will want to come play for him. It's a stretch, but maybe Mick thinks it's crazy enough that it just might work. He says, thanks for an awesome show. He's also in the early ranks of fatherhood with Matthew, so solidarity there, the new kid.
Yes.
He also offers to write us some new music. Yes, I remember this from previous review. I'm in for new music. No offense to Jay Pitty, but yeah, any music we got, I'm in.
Yeah, we could go like a new outro music or something. I can promise you and assure you that Jay Pitty would not notice. He's not a college basketball fan. He would not notice if our song disappeared.
Mick Cronin. Jim, I think he's just a curmudgeon. I don't think he has a master plan in terms of weeding the tough people out. I also don't think, hate to generalize the generation currently heading to college, I don't think anybody really is looking for a challenge, especially at the UCLA level, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a select few that probably going to end up at Houston and UCLA, like knowing what they're getting into, and recruited specifically for it. I think his rants have this effect still, but I don't know if it's full big brain Mick. Like, I'm setting up my recruiting strategy by screaming into the void at disliking the guys. I hope that players know what they're getting into because this is so publicly available and known about him and what he brings to the table. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to quite give him the credit of big brain planning there.
Yeah, I agree. However, I can see him influencing parents that want their kid coached hard and like have the old school mindset, which often influences the child, as you know. But at this level, I don't think so. Mick's being Mick, though. We like Mick Cronin. He's just like
Yeah, I like the
Hurley.
thought. I
College
like the
basketball
thought there.
needs a Cronin. Unfortunately, it needs a Hurley as well.
Yeah,
Mick's
yeah,
tirades seem a little more tolerable, I guess. I don't know, Jim.
yeah.
Yeah, why do I defend Mick and not Hurley is a good question.
I think it's like Mick's just mad. Hurley's more smug, and I think you and I
Yeah.
don't love smugness.
Yeah. Cronin can get a little bit like, are you really asking me this question in a presser?
Yeah,
But I think he's kind of
I
doing
guess he
it
had
tongue
to
in
like,
cheek.
I've won 500 games. I'm good. He did have that line,
It's
but
his delivery, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
again, Kai, it's like you said, it's characters welcome. I would be
yeah,
bummed
sure.
if we didn't get the Hurley rants to discuss. I'm
Agreed.
glad we have them. Again, as much as I'm encouraging him to stop doing it, I like that they exist. So
I agree.
don't go away.
All right. That's all the reviews.
That's it. Thank you for tuning in, folks, to another weekly podcast, another episode of the Three Man Weave. We're sorry we lost Matt at the very end there, but duty calls, and I think it might literally be duty in
Uh-oh.
terms of Gemma's world. So I hate to rat her out on Maine like this, but thank you for tuning in. Tune in again on Saturday, the 25th. We will talk through all kinds of games. Kai, we're gonna have to figure out if we're gonna do that from Fort Lauderdale in a week. That will be an
Yeah.
internal weave discussion, but at minimum, we will be doing it this Saturday, January 25th. Tune into our YouTube channel, live, free, talk through all kinds of games, take your questions on whatever game you're potentially betting on. It's the Best Bet Show, Saturday on our YouTube channel. So check that out. Get on the burner, get in the Discord, talk to us there. That's it. Thank you for tuning in.